If you're serious about becoming a competitive tournament golfer, more importantly, becoming a winning tournament golfer, then this conversation is a must listen. This guest is a must follow, and his book is a must purchase and must read over and over. Today's guest is Mr. Mike Booker, author of the Tournament Golfer's Playbook, Texas Golf Hall of Fame inductee, University of Houston NCAA national champion. And to be honest, he has won so many golf tournaments, received so many accomplishments, achievements, and recognitions and awards. I didn't have enough space in both Spotify and Apple Podcast show notes to list all of them. This man, alongside a 40-year successful career as an entrepreneur and financial advisor, is the go-to resource for all things tournament golf. And if you're ready to make the upgrade from a golfer who plays tournaments and become a tournament golfer, this conversation is for you. So without further ado, please help me welcome Mr. Mike Booker. Mike, you've been able to win countless golf tournaments in multiple decades. Absolutely incredible. What do you most attribute the longevity of your success to?
Well, I'd love to tell you I'm a workout fiend, that I really take great care of my body. I do some stretching over the years. I've tried to stay, fit. In terms of being able to really do well over the years in various decades, as you say, is really just trying to continue to be my own best friend. So I don't feel like I really let myself get too down. My wife, Pat, of 47 years, doesn't really let me get too high up, too carried away with myself. And so I think just trying to keep an even keel. As you get older, and I'm 70 now, which is weird saying that, but as you get older, I think you gain more perspective. And I think when I was a junior golfer, golf was, everything. Like a lot of high-level junior golfers, their whole world is golf, and that's fine, that's good. But as you get older, you realize that that golf is just a game, and that you shouldn't really let it take over your life. So I think the fact that I've had I'm so grateful for the life I've had, which has been not just about golf, not just about business, but lots and lots of factors that have kind of kept me mentally engaged. And I don't beat myself up too bad if I have a bad period. A good friend of mine, Robert Brewer, who's no longer with us, used to always tell me he had a 48-hour mourning rule. When you played bad in a tournament, he gave himself 48 hours to mourn, and then that's it. He's done.
Okay.
So I think just having a healthy love for the game, a love for competing, I think has really helped me have any longevity that I've had.
I hear the word steadiness in what you just shared. I love what you said. Your wife, will give her all the big shout out, 47 years too. Congratulations. But she doesn't let you get too high. Probably a great compliment. And you yourself don't allow yourself to dwell on what didn't go well and stay too low for very long. I also hear you put a lot of intention into your self-talk, I would imagine. Like, tell me more. What does it sound like to be your own best friend?
Yeah, it's great. I did a chapter, as you know, in the book talking about being your own best friend. And what I say at the beginning of that is that it's really not what you say to everyone else that makes your life successful. It's really what you whisper to yourself. And so I think self-talk is a really big deal. And when I was doing research for the book, I found that to be confirmed in many studies that have been done. So usually when we are beating each other or beating ourselves up, we speak in third person, like you are such a choker, or you are terrible, or things you might say to yourself, when you hit a really bad shot or have a bad event or whatever it is. And so having positive self-talk is really, really important. And we usually, in positive self-talk, the studies show that we speak in first person. I can do this. I know I'm going to be okay. So I think that affirmations, I'm not a guy that gets up every morning and does all these positive affirmations in the mirror while I'm shaving. But the studies have shown that when you do catch yourself being negative, when you catch yourself being a jerk to yourself, being worse than you might be to another person even, that you find a way to you turn that around. And so the studies have shown that if you're saying, man, you know, I'm such a choker or whatever it is, or sorry, you're such a choker, third person, to turn that around and say, no, 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 I'm going to be okay. I'm going to be all right. So I think the self-talk is a big deal. I think any great player I've ever met has had great self-talk. You can see that they are being their own best friend. I mean, it's a lonely game. It's a, you know, we don't have a, in basketball, somebody might set a great pick for you and you make an easy layup and you look great. But in golf, it's not that way. As you know, we're responsible for every shot we hit, good or bad. So I think that
Yeah.
having positive self-talk is a lot bigger deal than people give it credit for.
Yeah, it's so powerful. And it's something I try to, consciously or unconsciously infuse into every conversation I have on this show because it just carries so much potential impact on how you show up. And for those of you listening, I would encourage you to start noticing your body language when you catch yourself in one of those downward negative spirals of poor self-talk. You're going to notice the hunched, slumped over posture, and then bring more awareness to what you look like, feel like when you are kind to yourself, when you're inspirational, motivating, reassuring, whatever it is you may need that Mike's alluding to. There's a big difference. And that's an easy, low-hanging fruit to begin to further help you catch yourself earlier in those negative thought
Yeah, I talk about
loops.
in the book, the longest relationship you're ever going to have is with yourself. And so, um,
Mm.
so it's pretty essential that you are your own best friend. So that's, you hit on it exactly. And that is, get in the habit of catching yourself, being negative.
Yeah.
Don't just roll with it. And all of a sudden you hit a terrible shot and you go, oh, well, I wasn't really thinking about what I was doing. So I think also being rough on yourself, being too critical of yourself also takes you out of the present. It takes you out of, the business at hand when you're on the golf course.
Very well said. That's an excellent point there. Now, I'm curious, you have had an incredible amount of success on the golf course as well as in the business world and on your entrepreneurial journey. Yet, I'm curious, did you ever struggle during a period of time on or off the course with a hyper fixation or over attachment to results?
I've always been, so the answer is yes, but I've always been
Mm-hmm.
more of setting intermediate goals and not getting too
Okay.
wound up that I haven't hit a particular long-term goal soon enough. So I think the real secret is, and this has also been talked about, is to set intermediate goals, and that's another way of saying, take care of what you can take care of now, and keep, in my view, keep the big goal in the background, and don't obsess about it because it's the little steps toward that, the little victories on the way that get you to that goal. Like there was a time in my life when I was selling maintenance chemicals to big companies. And we had to make 10 demonstrations a day. And that company knew that if you did your demonstrations, if you did 10 of them, you might get 2 or 3 orders. And so that is focusing on little goals to get to the big goal. I mean, that's just one example, but that kind of taught me that keep the big goal in mind. And then, if you're not accomplishing that goal in the time period you got, I think at some point you have to evaluate, is this a realistic goal at all? If it is, and you still believe in it, then change something. Change one of the intermediate goals. Maybe you have to back up and have one that's even a short term goal to make sure you're moving toward the long term goal.
Would you attribute the focus and fixation on intermediate goals as one of the ways that you were able to avoid emotional burnout and continue moving
Yeah, I think
forward?
that's well said because you're going to be banging your head against the wall every day if you say, "Well, I didn't accomplish my goal of winning a tournament, winning the club championship." If that's a goal, that's fine. Well, intermediate goals might be, all right, what's the worst part of my game? What's the part of my game that needs the most work on, even though I may hate it? And maybe, a bunker game. So if I don't spend more time practicing bunkers, then I'm lessening my chances of getting to the club championship winner circle. So that's a great example to
Yeah.
me of a goal. But you can't obsess about it because it just eats you up, and you're not really doing the stuff that you need to do along the way to prepare yourself for that goal. And then you play in the club championship and you don't win it. All right. I talk about a post-round debrief in the book. What went wrong?
Yeah.
What went wrong? Did you go at pins you shouldn't have gone at? Did you not spend the time working on that part of the game that you needed? And under the gun, that part of your game failed. And so
Yeah.
And really, losing a club championship is really, in a way, one of those intermediate goals toward winning it next year.
That's one of the best reframes you can have for a scenario like that. I love that. You just haven't won yet, but now you've been closer than ever. You've got the taste, you've lived it. So when you are back there, it feels familiar. Dare I say, even almost comfortable. Maybe not comfortable, but it's that much more familiar, which allows you to, remove and reduce that mental
Yeah, I mean,
interference. So you
if
can
you look
play
at
to your
most
potential.
successful people, let's say successful golfers, their life has been primarily overwhelming majority failure. Overwhelming
Yeah.
majority has been failure. Um, Tiger Woods won, I don't even remember what else, 20% of his tournaments or something like that. So 80% of the time he failed. One of the great players of all time. So, and golf is very much that way. You sign up for golf, you're going to get beat up, and most of the time, you're going to fail to win the tournament. And so, most successful people, inventors, the guy, gosh, I can't think of his name now, but he invented a vacuum cleaner. Um, he said he wrote a book, and it was said "My Life of Failure." And of course, he's like a billionaire, and he's invented all these things. But to get there, he had to fail most of the time. And I find that very interesting.
Mm. Yeah, I love that. And I think that's one of the biggest perspective or mindset shifts that can be made is if you learn to embrace failure and see failure nothing more than a learning opportunity, a catalyst for growth. You actually get to that end ultimate goal much faster than you originally would have if every failure stifles you and knocks you down
Yeah,
3
Bobby Jones
pegs.
said he never learned anything about golf by winning. So it was always by
Mm,
failure. Of course, he didn't
interesting.
get beat
So then
much.
that's fair. So then I'm curious, what did your process look like when it came to actually slowing down to reflect, to review what has been working well, what isn't working, and how often did you implement some form of a reflection
Well, I'm not
process?
a big stat keeper. I know a lot of people are, and
Okay.
maybe I'd be better off if I was. But I think that when I go, well, all right. So take last year. Last year, tournament wise, I didn't play very well. I was pretty disappointed. And what was really hurting me was inside 100 yards, mostly fuller shots, not necessarily chip shots, but like the 80-yard wedge. I was just getting terrible contact. I was really having a lot of issues, and took 2 or 3 lessons, and I could seem to do better during the lesson, but then under the gun it was failing me. So that was a very obvious thing that I really had to make an adjustment for and really focus and spend all my time there. And it gets in your head. It got in my head. Once you dump enough 80-yard wedge shots in the water in front of the green, it's going to get in your head. So you just have to find a technique physically first to say, okay, here's what I'm doing wrong. In my case, I was kind of leaving my weight on my right side a little bit too much and hitting everything heavy. So that's fine. I get the physical part. And then the mental part is scar tissue. I mean, and I talk about that in my book a little bit too, is that I've got to kind of deal with the scar tissue of these poor shots I've been hitting. So evaluating what part of your game needs the most work. In this case, it was obviously, inside a 100-yard shot. And then
Yeah.
slowly, brick by brick, kind of building back your confidence in that via eliminating that poor move that's causing from a physical perspective, that's causing that problem.
Yeah, really well said there. And I think it's just a reminder for everyone listening, having some type of consistent point of evaluation or reflection, getting feedback from an outside party, an expert, a coach, whatever it may be. Again, it allows you to go faster. And that's what I need you to hear. Asking for help accelerates results, or having some form of an objective framework for feedback. It helps you to identify your blind spots, see what's not working so you can fill them and then perform well when you
And
need it
at the heart
most.
of all of that, Paul, I think is honesty with yourself,
Yeah.
honesty from, you
Yeah.
don't need a caddy that tells you how great you are. You need a caddy who's not necessarily going to run you down, but it's going to give you the straight skinny. More importantly, I talk about in the book, finding a mentor who's going to be honest with you, one who's kind of been down that road before. They kind of know where the potholes are and help you through that. So I think honesty is a big part of that, not just like a parent telling their kid how great they are all the time, and then when it gets down to it, they find out, well, maybe
Yeah.
I'm not that great. What do I do now?
And I think that ties in beautifully with what you shared in the beginning. Like, you got to be your own best friend. And, your best friend is someone you feel safe and courageous enough to be honest with. Like, hey, dude, like, you're slacking. You're not doing what you said you would do. you got to have those conversations with yourself
Yep,
as well.
very important.
Yeah. So slight shifting gears, but probably the undercurrent of our conversation. What does winning mean to you?
Winning is affirmation. Winning is I've been working really hard, and this is the payoff, if you will. Winning is a high for me. Um, the funny thing about winning, though, is that it is rather short-lived. It doesn't really stay with you as long as I would wish. I'm the sort of person I'm already ready to move on to the next thing. But there is nothing in this world like winning, like accomplishing a goal. But it's funny how it can be kind of short-lived, and that's um, my honest answer is that a couple of days later, it's like, okay, what's next? But winning, I don't mean to discount winning, because it's where you've really come through for yourself. It's where you've really been your own hero. It's where you were under the gun and you came out the other side safe. That's the thing. It's there's really nothing like it, really, at any level, and really probably at anything you do. When you accomplish what you were trying to do, it's a real, I think it's such a high, and you feel great. The problem is, like a drug, it wears off. And so the one thing I will tell you, though, and that I thought was kind of interesting is I was fortunate enough to be inducted into the Texas Golf Hall of Fame. And everybody asked me, what does that feel like? Well, that was a high too. And I said it was kind of similar to winning a tournament. But because it really was a reflection on a whole lifetime of golf, it still lasts. It still feels great. And so it's not, I may forget the feeling of winning a particular tournament, but being in the Hall of Fame, and I don't say that to be braggy, I'm just saying that high, that feeling, that reflection on your whole life still feels great.
Well, it's incredibly well deserved, and I'm glad that this one has lasted, so you can reconnect with it on a frequent basis. Because I can only imagine the sacrifice, the time, effort, energy that was dedicated to all of these achievements. Which leads me to the question: like, where did you? I mean, we haven't even gotten to your entrepreneurial success yet, but going and growing on and off the course here, where did sacrifice have to be made? And at what cost was some of the success you achieved on and off the course?
Well, I guess I never thought of it as sacrifice, because it's a labor of love, really. You have to kind of, as a working person, you have to kind of make time for it. As a family man, you have to make time for it, and you have to get your priorities straight. But I guess the sacrifice at all, if anything, is just going through the ringer, if you will, of tournament golf. Tournament golf, as you know, and most of your listeners know, is not anything like recreational golf. Recreational golf, go out and play with your buddies. Maybe you keep score, maybe you don't. Maybe you have a beer, and you give each other a hard time. Just have a fun time. And I love recreational golf, but tournament golf is just a whole different animal. Everybody's looking. Everybody, you, no matter what you do, whether you shoot well or shoot bad, it seems like everybody who is in the golf world knows. And so you have to be responsible for what you do. So I think that if there's any sacrifice, it's choosing the path of tournament golf that has been more of a sacrifice in terms of, and this may sound strange, I don't play tournament golf for fun, because tournament golf is not fun. Tournament golf is a challenge. I think if you asked Sir Edmund Hillary, was it fun climbing Mount Everest, he would probably say no. It was a lot of sacrifice. Not really. But for me, it's choosing that tournament path, it's choosing to play tournaments, which I love to do. I love to play tournament golf, but that in itself is an automatic sacrifice, because most of the time you're not going to be successful.
That's an awesome answer. Definitely a new perspective, which I'm so grateful that you shared. Now, flipping it into the entrepreneurial pursuits, I love, you on paper, and this may be my humble opinion, incredible success on the golf course. We've seen that, stats, accolades, Hall of Fame induction there. Incredible business achievement accolades, the impact you've had on others' lives, their families, etc. 47-year marriage. I mean, absolutely incredible. What's your secret? And just kidding, but joking, maybe seriousness, all wrapped in one. Like, what do you attribute your ability to achieve such lasting success in your 3 domains of life to?
Wow, that's quite the question, Paul. So I think looking back on it in all of those things, I think briefly to say that I've for whatever reason, I've always been my own best friend. So I'd come home in a sales job. I founded this firm right at 40 years ago, and we manage money and we do financial planning for people. But you may have just a really terrible day where you're trying to get people to become a client and they don't. So coming home with uh, feeling pretty down, I never let that really, for whatever reason, maybe it's my DNA or something, but I never really spent a lot of time beating myself up about that. And I'd be down about it, absolutely. But the next day I got up in the morning, I was ready to go again. So I think the ability to
Right.
to not worry about getting knocked down at all, just make sure that you get back up. So I think if there's one thing, even in a marriage, 47 years, we've had a wonderful marriage, and I've got a wonderful wife, Pat. But you go through things in life together. I had back surgery like 4 years ago, which was tough, and she nursed me through that. And things that pop up in life, and so you've got to don't fear those things. I think as I said in the book, embrace the suck, accept it, draw it in,
Yeah.
and that's the only way you can really deal with it. So not being afraid to fall down, because I always knew I'd get back up.
Yeah, like I hear deep sense of self-trust, confidence, belief that whatever comes your way and knocks you down, you're still going to get up and move forward.
Yeah, the guy who taught me how to play, Lee Myers, he was a Golden Gloves boxer, and he's a great athlete, great scratch golfer, all these things. But he always told me, he said, just keep on punching him, maybe you'll get a draw. So even if you get knocked down in the ring, maybe if you can just keep throwing punches, you'll get out of it with a draw.
Okay. Yeah, I love that. That's outstanding. And I hear like a tenacity too, we could plug grit in there, resiliency, but at the end of the day, like tenacity in my inner experience has a bit of just like dirty, competitive grind, scrappy to it, which I imagine is part of your success in the competitive world, business and golf. It's just that ability to scrap, even when things aren't going well, the swing's not quite there, you're still making the best out of the situation.
Yeah, I think, and just I have to say, without being too hokey, I think just being grateful. As I get older, especially, you really, if you don't have gratitude, then you're not paying attention. So for me, I've always been grateful for what golf has spent a lot of time knocking me down. Absolutely. But I've always been grateful, and I've always felt that golf has taught me so much. And a lot of these things, Paul, you look back during the time you're getting knocked down, it's pretty damn miserable. Whether it's in business or whether it's golf or whatever it is, or situations, things that happen to you. So I think that just having the ability to get back up and say, you know what, I'm still here, and I'm going to be grateful for that. And I think as you get older, you get more grateful. And I am deeply grateful for everything, all the good, the bad, and the ugly.
If you don't have gratitude, you're not paying attention. That one hit. That was really, really good. I am going to store that, use that, and recycle that. That was gold. I really appreciate
I
you
just thought of it,
sharing
so
that.
here you are. I just made it. But it's true. It's true.
Real time. It is. And I can just hear it all coming together. You again, like the undercurrent for you is just this positive, loving, kind, compassionate self-talk, trusting, that is the way that allows you to overcome the obstacles that are inevitably going to show up in every domain of life. And you just keep moving. You can see them as teachers and opportunities. And it's clearly been a winning blueprint or recipe, to say the least, for you. So now, though, this is what I'm really excited for, is you've alluded to it all already, under the gun. You can go to the range all day and be a scratch golfer, but under the gun is one thing on the course with your buddies. We take it up a couple of notches in tournament golf. What mistake or collection of mistakes do most people make when they find themselves in a high stakes, pressure filled under the gun situation?
Great question. There are a couple of 3 different facets to that. So the reason, the primary, in my belief, the primary reason we don't perform under the gun is because we're result-oriented thinking. So if you think about it, every time you choke, and I've choked my guts out many times under the gun, when you choke, it's because you're worried about the outcome. You're worried about the result.
Yeah.
And by the way, this is not an original thought for me. People have been saying this for hundreds of years. But so number one thing that I think that causes people to underperform under the gun is because they're not focusing on their process. They're not taking care of, sticking to their knitting right now, right here, right now. What do I need to do? As opposed to, I've got to knock it on the green. I got to make a birdie and blah blah blah. So so I've talked about in the book, if you've got two people on the last hole and they both have a 10-footer to win the tournament, and one's what I call a tournament golfer who understands that the ball may not go in the hole. If it goes in the hole, great. But they're gonna pick their line. They're gonna pick their speed, and they know they're gonna do the best they can, and that's their process. They're just gonna, because once Jackie Burke told me, once you hit the ball, that's it. You're out of it. You have nothing more to say or do about it. What I call the golfer who plays tournaments, who is not a tournament golfer, who is focused on results, they're thinking, man, if I can make this putt, that trophy's going to look great in my study. And they're all about the result, and it causes them to not really do their best by rolling the best putt they can roll. So that's number one, is focus on the result instead of the present. Now, there's two things that help you focus on the present. Number one, a pre-shot routine. This is, I think, the most ignored part of the golf game, particularly for younger people, is they don't have a disciplined pre-shot routine. So I don't care what your pre-shot routine is. I just care that it's got to be the same every time. So that when I'm standing out there on the 18th fairway and I've got to hit this ball on the green and finish as best I can, the pre-shot routine is that safe harbor. It's that familiarity. It's that thing that you're used to because you've done it thousands of times the same way every time. And so when I'm on that fairway, when I plug into my pre-shot routine, it's like someone's got their hand on my shoulder and say, "Hey, we got this. This is what we've done a million times before." But if I'm so nervous and undisciplined that I grab the club and this is my particular problem, is I speed things up, and oftentimes people get under the gun, they speed up, so I forget to do my pre-shot routine exactly the same. I do it a little bit differently. Well, now I'm in a different place. I'm not in that safe harbor. I'm winging it. So, and you'll see really good players. Sometimes they're ready to go, hit the ball, and they'll step off it because they've recognized that they're not really right here, right now. So they'll start the whole pre-shot routine all over again. And then so that will really help you stay in the present because it's what I call the familiarity of the situation every time. And then finally, breathing. I talk about breathing in the book and breath cycles. So counting your breaths is the very best way to get back to the present, to get back to the task at hand. And there's nothing like breathing. And if you can do a cycle, which is an inhale, through the nose, hold it a little bit, exhale through the mouth, do that 5 times. Very difficult to do without excess thoughts, coming through your head, like what am I going to have for lunch and what shoes am I going to wear today? Just stupid little thoughts that go through your head that distract you from the task at hand. Or if we're talking about being on the last hole in the middle on the 18th fairway, these thoughts like, well, what's the winning score? What do I got to do? But when you can really count your breaths and pay attention to the breath cycles, it brings you back to the present and really helps you out. It really gets you back to the task at hand.
And it's so crucial because our minds are so prone to running amok in these situations. We're focused on the trophy with 9 holes left to play. We care so much about how we're perceived. Other people are watching. Fear of judgment, rejection, abandonment, embarrassment here. I love just the strategies and the tactical approaches. Just get back to the present moment. Get back to the present moment. When you can do that, it's the same. I loved your description. Familiar place, environment, routine that you've executed thousands of times.
And I'm mentoring a couple of juniors and one college player, and I tell them all the time, let the scorecard take care of it. That's not, you can't. And by the way, I don't tell them not to think about results. I just tell them to recognize when you are and then get back to the present. You're going to be bombarded with result-oriented thinking 100 times, 200 times during a round of golf. The trick is to recognize it and push it back and, start counting breaths, get your, pre-shot routine, discipline, whatever it takes. But it's not that you're going to be in this zone all the time and these excess extraneous thoughts are not going to occur. They are. It's going to be bombarded with it. The trick is to recognize them, push them away, and get back to your process.
Yeah, I love that. And I've even found success personally and with some of my clients is reframing the results as execution of the process, meaning you've put time into building this process that is supposed to give you the best possible chance to achieve those ultimate results, rather than focusing on those results because some of those variables that influence them are beyond your control. How well did you execute the process? Did you follow your pre-shot routine 98% of the time or 78% of the time? Did you take those breaths? Did you do X, Y, and Z? If you can grade yourself there and allow yourself to gradually improve execution, the results are going to take care of
well said.
themselves.
And all you're really doing is increasing your chances. It's not a lock cinch. You're just increasing your chances. And because we know it's a tough game and we're human. So we got two very major things working against us. So we're just trying to get ourselves in a situation for the best potential outcome.
What's the difference between a tournament golfer and a golfer who plays tournaments?
So that's the question, isn't it? So when by the way, I never was on my bucket list to write a book. I never even thought about writing a book. I got a call about 4 years ago from Coach Dismuke, University of Houston golf coach. And he called me up and said, Mike, we got this great, talented team, but we are not winning. We're not doing anywhere near what we should do. He said, would you come and talk to these guys? And I was flattered that he asked. And I said, sure, I'd be honored to. So I wrote down an outline of things that I thought were important for a tournament golfer and what a tournament golfer really was. And many of the things in my book were on the outline of being your own best friend, understanding what you can control, what you can't control, taking responsibility for every shot you hit, not being a victim, no excuses, that sort of thing. And so I kind of put this loose outline together and I sat down. I think there were about 15 young men about 10 days later. And I went around and met everybody. And then we sat down, got down to business. I said, all right. I said, you guys think that you're tournament golfers. They all kind of nodded. And I said, I think that you're just golfers who play tournaments. And of course, they didn't know what to think of that. And what I was trying to say is that just showing up at a tournament is not going to automatically give you success. You're not really, in my definition of a tournament golfer, is having these characteristics, focusing on process, understanding what you can control, can't control, never being a victim, no excuses, taking responsibility for every shot, these sorts of things. These golfers, super talented, but they were not, there was a weakness there, and it was maybe they were beating themselves up. Maybe their pre-shot routine was non-existent. Maybe they felt like they were a victim. You drive it right. I say, and I talk about, when you drive it right down the middle, hit a perfect drive, and you're in a divot, a tournament golfer is going to not spend any time wasting energy on what a bad break they got. They don't believe in bad breaks. My ball's in a divot. Yeah. What am I going to do about it? And I like the attitude of, this is, you may think this is a terrible break. This is just part of the game. So watch me now. Watch what I'm going to do with this. That's the attitude I want, my readers on my book to have. The golfer who plays tournaments always has excuses. In fact, they feel like they live in a world of good breaks and bad breaks, and all they do is get bad breaks. And so you really want to get out to be a tournament golfer by Mike Booker's definition. There is no good break, no bad break. There is no good luck. There is no bad luck. You take responsibility. If I hit it down the middle, goes in a nasty divot, I hit it there. I'm going to take responsibility for it, and I'm going to deal with the situation rather than waste all my energy on what a bad break I got. And so that's really a big difference. And so after this meeting, interestingly, the team had not won a tournament all year. They won conference by 12 shots 3 weeks later. So I sound like I'm taking credit. Maybe I am, but I thought to myself, wow, maybe I've got something here. Maybe there is something. So my original idea was I'll put a pamphlet together and give it to my buddies and, just some thoughts. And I went online and I Googled how many golf books there are. The answer to that, 60,000 golf books. So then I said, forget it. Nobody wants to hear from Mike Booker, another stupid, golf book out there. There's so many. But as I dug a little deeper, I found out that of the ones that were written on the mental game, they were all written by sports psychologists. And I thought, well, I love
Mhm.
sports psychologists. They're fine, but they haven't stood over a 3-foot putt to qualify for the U.S. Amateur and missed it. You know, they haven't
Mm.
had that necessarily. I think they're great, but I don't think too many books have been written by what I call a tournament golfer. So that's when I decided
Yeah.
to write the book at all, was because, and I enjoy writing. So, I really wanted to write it from the tournament golfer's perspective. And my book is not about, oh, look at me, I did this and I did that. My book is mostly about failure. It's mostly about what I did wrong. And it's observing those people who were tournament golfers long before I was a tournament golfer, and I couldn't figure it out.
Yeah.
I couldn't figure out why I hit the ball as well as this guy. I felt like I made as many putts as this guy, but this guy was beating me every time we showed up together in a tournament, going back at junior golf. And what I didn't understand is they
Mm.
were executing these characteristics that I bring out in the book about what a tournament golfer is. And I didn't. I was a victim. I didn't take responsibility for, my game. I always had an excuse, these sort of things. So until I recognized what they
Yeah.
had that I didn't have, it didn't matter if I hit the ball as well as they did. Didn't matter if I putted as well as they did, because they had such an edge on me because they were so much tougher.
Yeah. Oh, I love that. Because underneath all of this is simply an identity shift, an identity upgrade here. And your identity being what it includes your beliefs, your habits, your thoughts, your attitude, and then all of those mindset characteristics you alluded to, the tenacity, the grit, the resiliency, the growth mindset. So I'm thrilled you shared that. My listeners know, so I played poker professionally for a couple of years. I work with a lot of professional
Wow,
poker
cool.
players. And yeah. So what I'm hearing from you is, there's the tournament golfer, the golfer who plays tournaments. And then my world back then, it was the professional poker player and the gambler. The professional poker player who got his pocket aces cracked all in understands, that's going to happen sometimes. You reload, you press on. The gambler who does that has a sob story rooted in the victim mentality that never ends. You never hear the end of it. They're talking about it months, if not years later. And it's all about your perception of the game of golf in this case. Is it fair? Is it unfair? And then the perception of yourself. What are you worthy, deserving, and capable of? And are you capable of overcoming what might seem like an unfortunate break by just knowing it's part of the
Well,
process?
that's well said. I mean, that's very tied very closely to what I see as golf and life, for that matter. I spoke to a
Yeah.
group of young people, a couple hundred young people, and I said, look, here's the great thing. You can walk out of here tonight and be a tournament golfer. By my definition, you can do it. But I said, you can't just do one or two or three of these things. To be a tournament golfer, my definition, you have to do all these things. And so,
Yeah.
and by the way, you're doing some of these things already, but you've got one or two things that are preventing you. These characteristics are preventing you from being the best golfer you can be. And so, that is the key, is that you can make that decision right now and be the tournament golfer. Um, and when you go out and play golf, or when you in business or in your personal relationships, you're not just a tournament golfer while you're inside the ropes. You're a tournament golfer 24/7, and that, me, is the key
Yes.
to a good life.
I love that. What I hear underneath it all, it's the decision to be committed to a goal versus interested. Because you're right, it's easy to be committed for the 4 or 5 hours on the course and then to, half-ass things the rest of the day. But a tournament golfer embodies, that is their identity 24/7. They're not just merely interested in success. They're breathing it, they're
Yeah, totally
embodying
agree.
it.
A book, Atomic Habits, talks about two guys that were going to quit smoking,
Yeah.
and they go to
Uh-huh.
and they're offered a cigarette, and the first guy says, "Oh no, I'm trying to stop smoking." Second guy says, "Oh, I don't smoke." That's the difference.
Boom.
You can take it on. So if you're a tournament golfer, even if things aren't going well, you're still going to have all of those attributes and carry yourself. I talk about going down swinging in the book. Being a tournament golfer means whether things are going well or things are not going well, you're still a tournament golfer, because you understand these characteristics that you're going to carry through all the time, not just when things are going well or when things are only going bad.
Yeah. So running with this a little further, if we get into a bit more of those traits, those characteristics, is there a common mental leak that most golfers don't see? When I say mental leak, it's a belief, a habit, or fear that ends up costing them significantly more.
Well, I think that as far as a mental leak goes, I think the absolute most common one, particularly in junior golfers, is, in college golfers, is not having the perspective that that golf is a game. It's a part of their life. It's not their whole life. And I know that's really hard because I didn't do that when I was junior golfer and college golfer. Forget it. That's all I focused on. So I think
Yeah.
now junior golfers and young college golfers, I think they are, just because of the culture now, they're recognizing that the golf is a game, it is a part of their life, not their whole life. So I do see that. And of course, again, not to beat a dead horse, but from a mental leak side, it was very difficult is when that stuff pops into your head about what's going to happen, as opposed to just taking care of yourself right now. Kenny Perry, I talk about in the book. He'd won um, 20 or 30 million bucks on tour, had never won a major. He was considered the best player to never win a major. And I think it was 1996 Masters. He went there with a couple things in his head. He wasn't going to really hawk the scoreboard, because why? Because that's result. If I'm looking at a scoreboard all the time,
Mm-hmm.
that's result. And he was going to be what he called conservatively aggressive. Anyway, he finds himself the last day, back nine of the Masters. He hits it 6 inches on 16, makes birdie, and he looks up at the scoreboard for the first time in the whole tournament between 16 green and 17 tee box, and he sees he's got a 2-stroke lead. Well, he tells his caddy, par, and we're Masters champion. So really, for the first time all week, he swapped process for result. And he will tell you in the book that he did. So he bogeys 17, he bogeys 18, and gets beat by Angel Cabrera on the second playoff hole with another bogey. So even the greatest players of all time, and Kenny Perry, he's a household name. He's a great player, won all this money. He's subject to this mental leak of thinking about result and not just staying, in the process. So again, not my idea, not an original idea, but there's nobody that can beat it all the time. Even the greatest players of all time, this happens. So the key is recognize it and push it out and get back, start breathing, pre-shot routine, whatever it takes to get you in the present. If you don't recognize that you're thinking about the result, then you're toast, because you won't be able to pull yourself back in time.
And I love that you shared that, because it's just a great reminder of the humanness within all of us. There's no perfection. Those on tour aren't robotics, emotionless beings. They too have 50 to 70,000 thoughts per day. They too have a brain wired to scan their environment for threats, immediate danger. They too are subject to primarily negative thoughts. They give themselves, as Mike said, they're their own best friend, but there's compassion, there's grace, and there's just a willingness to always push forward, to get back up and move in the direction they desire.
I think that's fair. I think that's right.
Yeah. So I'm curious, what does the tournament golfer version of you look like in the entrepreneurial space? What are those characteristics or traits that, you really emulate and embody most in your professional role?
Well, I think when you're in any kind of, when you're starting up a business, it's very similar to golf. There's really no one there to help you. Yes, you can hire people, and I've got people that are much smarter than me in management positions with my company, and so I've always tried to surround myself with, just like golf, people that are better than me. And so um, the stuff that I brought from the golf course to the business was the idea of, which we touched on before, having goals, but not the big long term goals. Which in money management, you're raising money, you're trying to get money under management, you're trying to get a certain number of clients, you're trying to get a certain number of what we call AUM, assets under management, all those things. I think I did a good job of just letting that happen. We always felt like, and I've always tried to instill in all our advisors, just take care of the client, and the rest of it will happen. And so we have a really high retention rate of clients, something like 98%, because if we don't worry about the little things and just make sure we're taking care of the client, take responsibility for mistakes we make, all those things that really are on the golf course. The way you're going to par a hole is not going to be hitting a long drive. It's going to be the drive. It's going to be the second shot. It's going to be how you respond on the putting green. It's all these little things that are leading up to that par, and that's how really I've run my business. I've not never gotten to a point where the long term goal just I succumbed to that, and that's all I thought about every day. I just tried to do the little things right, take care of the client, put the client first, and I had confidence that if I took care of the client first, that everything else would happen. And that's very much like on the golf course. If I can take care of this shot right now in front of me, then I'm not going to worry about what the ending score is. I'm just going to do the best I can do, but I'm not going to spend the whole day, which is, by the way, in a qualifier for a US Senior Am or US Am or Mid Am, any USGA type qualifier, people always have, and you can't avoid it. People always think, well, what's it going to take? Well, they got 5 spots and we got 100 guys, so it's probably going to take 2 under or whatever. You can't get caught up in that. You really need to just say, I have got no control over what score is going to make it today. So one of the things that a tournament golfer does is they recognize what they can control and what they can't. And so, I may think about on that qualifying day, I may think about the qualifying score 50 times. I've just got to push it away and say, no, I've got to catch that, and I've got to get back to the present, back to my process, and wait for the next time a result monster shows up. I've got to push that monster out. So that's the way I did my business too. I was always grateful for when a client, when a person becomes a client. I've always been grateful for their confidence and trust in me, and that's a sacred thing for us. So I really let the score in my business. I let the scorecard take care of itself at the end as well.
Yeah. Process. I mean, it's just a beautiful example, again, off the course, how the same principles apply. If you want that ultimate result, it starts with over fixation on the process to get there. The result will inevitably
And there's a
take care
million
of itself.
processes. Like, for example, when we sit down with a prospective client, we have a process that we go through to, present to that client. And it's a pre-shot routine, if you will. We're gonna talk about certain
Yes.
things. Mostly we want to find out why they're here, why they want to talk to an advisor. What is it that they need an advisor for, to see if we're a good match? So those are all things that we do every single time. If I do something the same way every time and refine it along the way, then I'm going to have more success than if I just show up and wing it every time. It just doesn't work.
And it just conserves so much more energy. So that, especially when you're under the gun, golf or, a high stakes negotiation, now you have the energetic bandwidth to be sharp, clear, focused, certain about what it is you want to say, how you want to present and come across, which again, further exponentially increases your opportunity.
Well said.
For the
Totally
results.
agree.
Yeah. I'm curious, is there one particular failure on or off the course that taught you one of the most profound lessons you continue to live by?
I think in terms of mistakes, there's a lot to choose from, and generally speaking, it's been either I haven't prepared for that part of my game that needed some work, and so
Okay.
on the course when I needed it the most, it failed me, and I failed myself in that sense that I thought I had this figured out, and I didn't have it figured out. And here under the guns, where you find out, right? Under pressure is where you find out exactly where the leaks are. And so there's been
Yes.
many situations where it's like, you know what? I thought I worked on this, and obviously I haven't. Now, part of that can be that you revert to a bad physical habit that caused the issue. And part of it can be the lack of confidence from doing it wrong and failing so many times. You get that scar tissue form. So it can be a little bit of both. So I would say in general, it's going to be something that I should have worked on harder and spent more time with, whether it's chipping or putting or whatever it might be, that I didn't. I think it's very common to see a young person banging balls out all the time with the driver that they're hitting 320 and not working on maybe a part of their game that they really needed to, because it's not as much fun. And if you're chili dipping all your pitches, it's not fun to go out and you know that you're going to still chili dip. But for me, that's where I got to go, because I'm gonna do that under the gun. So that's certainly a failure that, looking back on it, I wish that when I had a weak part in my game, in my heart of hearts, I knew it was a weak part of my game right now, that I didn't spend more time on, because it's going to come up under the gun. That's number one.
Yeah.
Number two is, there was a time, I think before I was a tournament golfer, that I did make excuses, and I did feel like everything was stacked against me when, and it's hard not to. When you hit, like I say, a beautiful iron shot and it's going right at the pin, and for whatever reason, it's the wrong club or it bounced wrong, it plugs in the front bunker instead of being 10 feet from the hole, you, it's easy to fall into victimhood. You know,
Mm.
I tell a story in the book. We won the NCAA at University of Houston my senior year, and we didn't have, cell phones. We didn't have scoreboards on the golf course. We're upstate New York at Colgate at the golf course there. Anyway, the last hole, I knew we were close, and Oklahoma State was defending champion. Oklahoma State won every single tournament they played in that year, so they were the big favorites. David Edwards and Jaime
Wow.
Gonzalez, Lindy Miller, all tour players, all great players. Anyway, so last hole is a par five. I hit a wedge in there about 10 feet. I ran at my 10-footer, knocked it by about 3 feet, missed a 3-footer coming back. So here I am, whatever I am, 21 years old or something. This is my last tournament of my college career, last hole of my college career. There's no next
Yeah.
year. I was a senior. And so I was full of just self-loathing. I mean, I was so mad, not at the world around me. I was mad at myself, and I was so upset with myself. I turned my card in and I stormed into the locker room, and I was going up these stairs to my locker to get my junk out of my locker. And I felt like, I say in the book, I felt like all 35,000 uh, students at University of Houston when I missed that short putt, that they just all, grunted or sighed or something. I felt the weight of
Right.
all that. And, team golf is the hardest golf because you not
Yeah.
only can drag your team down like I felt I had done by missing this little putt, but you can also play great and the other guys don't. And so it kind of nullifies your, it's just, no, there's almost no upside to team golf that way, pressure wise. Anyway, I go in his locker room and I bang that door open and I'm storming upstairs. I look up and here is about a 12 or 13-year-old kid coming down the stairs and he's struggling. He's got crutches and they're the metal kind that, that are custom made. And I knew right away it wasn't
Uh-huh.
a sprained ankle. This kid was handicapped and this kid was going to have to deal with this handicap the rest of his life. And I really think that was such a message to me because immediately, even as a young jerk, 21-year-old punk kid who was mad at himself about, missing a putt on the golf course, I looked up and I saw this kid and I said, this kid, he's going to have to deal with a very difficult life in front of him. Who am I to beat myself up over this little putt I missed? And so I can remember it felt just like somebody had stuck a pin in a water balloon. I totally calmed down and I realized,
Yeah.
you haven't got it so bad. Part of being grateful, and it's a great story because we did win the NCAA. It'd be a
Yeah.
horrible story if we lost by a stroke, that would be some scar tissue. But seeing this young man, knowing how lucky I really was to be playing in a D1 golf school and for the guys I was with and the coach, Dave Williams, all those things, they all hit me at once when I saw this young man struggling down the stairs in his crutches.
I really appreciate you sharing that. It's vulnerable and it's just a powerful reminder that we all as humans have that propensity to make things much worse in our minds than they really are. There's the recency bias, that emotional charge is so strong moments later. But whatever you can do to begin to strengthen the skill of gratitude, perspective, reclaiming that opportunity to be present in the moment, it goes a long way in helping your ability to bounce back
Yeah, there is
faster.
no experience that I can think of offhand that I am more grateful for than that young man coming down the stairs. Of course, he had no idea what he had done for
Yeah.
me, but I had enough perspective to realize that, hey, calm down. You haven't got it so bad after all.
Yeah. Yeah. So imagine this. There's a billboard in the middle of a golf course. It's visible from all 18 tee boxes. And you have an opportunity to write a single message on that billboard that every golfer can see. What message are you writing on that billboard, Mike?
Don't worry about it. Nobody really cares that much.
Mm.
In the book,
I
I
like
talk
that.
about the spotlight effect, which is interesting. You can Google it. We all think that everybody is watching. When we walk through a restaurant, we sit down, we had a mustard stain on our shirt. We go, oh my God, I look like an idiot. Nobody really saw it. Nobody really, if they did see it, they could care less. And so I think that
Yeah.
all in all, people really don't care as much as you think they do. And that doesn't mean they're bad people. It just means that the things that, particularly in tournament golf, the things that you think are so important, 100 years from now, nobody's going to even remember what it was. And so, that's what I would say is that don't take things so seriously because people don't care as much as you think they do.
Yeah. Well, for you listening, the one thing I do want you to start taking more seriously is your commitment to tournament golf. And I think the best way to begin doing that is to hear from Mike exactly where you can go. Mike, where can they go to buy your book, to learn more about you, connect with you, and how they can work
Thanks.
with you?
My website for the book is TG Tournament Golfer, tgplaybook.com. It's available on Amazon. I had a wonderful guy, Paul Geidel, narrated the book. So the book is actually in audio form as well. And so Lee Gottle, sorry, I knew I sounded wrong. Lee Gottle did a wonderful job narrating the book. So you can go to my website. There's a button on there. It's my favorite button. It says buy now. And that'll take you to Amazon, and you can buy it in a Kindle version. You can buy it hard copy, or now you can buy it as an audiobook. So tgplaybook.com.
Outstanding. Mike, thank you so much for this conversation. This
Oh,
was
my
incredible.
pleasure, Paul. Great questions. We got a little deep there, didn't we?
Hey, that's the goal here. We got to shake it up. We got to get vulnerable because we can't just rely on the surface level stuff to get us to where we want to go.
Fair point. Can't argue with that.
And for those of you listening, thank you so much for tuning in to another episode of the Scratch Golfer's Mindset Podcast. I know you found immense value, plenty of takeaways to begin shifting your perspective on how you are showing up if you truly are serious and committed to becoming the best tournament golfer you can be. So go get Mike's book, re-listen to this episode, share it with a fellow golfer, and you'll be well on your way to embodying becoming a tournament golfer versus just a golfer who plays in tournaments. And if you haven't done so already, it takes 30 seconds to leave a genuine rating and review on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, wherever you're listening to today's conversation. It goes a long way in supporting the show, and I greatly appreciate you for doing that. Have a wonderful rest of your day. Hit them straight this weekend, and we'll catch you in the next episode.